My name is Tarisai, and I graduated from UCT officially 2010, but I joined UCT in 2004. I grew up in Khayelitsha, in Kwezi Park. My journey to UCT was quite interesting because I registered for the wrong degree. I went to Salt River High. Anyone from Salt River High? No one. Anyway, I went to Salt River High. It's a little school in Salt River. Now it's full of gangs, so I'm trying to get rid of the gangs in the school. But we didn't have career guidance in school, but I used to dream of going to UCT. So sometimes during my grade 11, I used to go up to UCT and walk around, and guess where I wanted to be? In the law faculty. So I used to be like, I want to be a lawyer because I watched Ali McBeal, and I thought I could be one of them because I thought court was like that. So I really wanted to be a lawyer. So I used to walk around and all of that, and of course, someone then told me, no, UWC is the best law. So I thought I was going to do it, but then my mom told me, girls fell pregnant in the bushes, and if I dare go there and fall pregnant, she was going to kill me. So UCT was the only option for me. And I started getting nervous, actually, because I applied to UCT, but didn't apply to anywhere else. And then at the end, I thought, what if they don't take me? What am I going to do? Because again, my mom will kill me if they don't take me. So my option was UCT, and I prayed really hard that they took me, and thank goodness they took me, but they took me for the wrong degree. Because I didn't have career guidance, I saw this thing called BA Law. And I was like, wow, you get 2 degrees in 5 years. My goodness, what a miracle. So I'm going to apply for that one. But they didn't tell me, or I didn't read properly, that this is a BA degree first, then you have to qualify again to make it into the law faculty. And so anyway, my mom had already told the whole of Kwezi that my child is going to be a lawyer and is going to make all this money. So now I'm at UCT, registration time, and I realize I'm in the orientation group for a BA degree. And I'm like, oops, what am I going to say? Because everybody's talking about how I'm going to be a lawyer. Anyway, cut the short story. I'm like, can I change? They tell me all these things, and I'm like, I now got a loan for it. I'm like, I'm not going to change. I'm just going to stick with it. So I stuck with it, and best decision of my life, because I did the BA and I did the law. And now I really do have the 2 degrees, but it took me longer than what I thought it was going to. But when I graduated from my BA, it's nice because I spent my time at Jamie. I would never have done that if I had gone to Kramer. I also did all these courses, and I had time to do Shoko, because when I went for my LLB, I didn't have much time to volunteer. But it refined me to be someone who was more socially conscious, but also the law was for the money, to be honest. I really was like, okay, I'm going to do BA for my love, but I'm going to still stick to the law because I want to make money. I want a house in Constantia. Yes, I wanted a house in Constantia. I wanted a fancy car with a driver because I had to be driven around. And then I went for my LLB now. And then I joined this society called Black Law Students Forum. And they do transformation stuff. We all know these things from UCT. So then the Judicial Inspectorate of Prisons wanted to recruit law students because no one goes into DCS to work for the correctional services, and they want to recruit us. And then so we partner up. And then we went to Polsmoor prison, actually. And when we were at Polsmoor, it was a Friday, so unfortunately or fortunately, we only ended up going to see the juvenile section. So we walk in, and it's got all these high bars, and there's all these kids in cells wearing casual clothes. Some are wearing red tracksuits and blue jeans. And for me, it was like, what the hell is this? Because you see it on TV. On Ali McBeal, they never show that. They only show you the fancy lawyers, people banging things and saying objection, objection, objection. And that's what I wanted. And there I walk into prison and I see these kids. And it was such an emotional thing for me because I just was like, what is this? And luckily the warden actually allowed us to ask questions. So I asked them, and a lot of them had 100 Rand bail, 200 Rand bail. There is one word, 50 Rand bail. And they couldn't afford it. So I asked, why can't? And everyone was offering, because it was a Friday night, we all knew what we were going to do with our money. We were going to go clubbing somewhere. So it's like 100 rand. I mean, I'm not rich, but I used to do jobs, waitressing and stuff. So I would just make it the next day if I wanted to. But of course, we couldn't do it for legal reasons and all the systems, policies and stuff. But when we walked off and we all went about our lives, I couldn't stop thinking about this issue, because now it's real. They didn't read, they didn't have books. I walked into the UCT library full of books. Okay, some people actually used to throw away paper and things, and these are things that these inmates didn't have. But also I thought, wait a minute, if they're in prison and they're not reading and they're not doing anything, when they come out, what do they actually do? And also, what happens with the crime issue? What are we doing about it? Because that person could rob me again. That was my issue. So I thought, what can I do about this? So then I started thinking I'm going to start my own NGO and all of that, but life happens, I didn't. But I kept on thinking about it. And one day I was looking for my waitressing job. Young in Prison was advertising for a project coordinator. I was like, I'm going to apply. I'm going to fake it. I'm going to pretend I know what I'm talking about and see if it works out. So I applied. It took so long to get back to me. And then they gave it to me. And it had a corner office with nothing and just an idea. It was this lady who came to intern here 10 years ago, and she had an idea, but she just thought she would let it, to local hands to be run. So it's like, okay, I'm here. And then this one girl said to me, you can either make this organization or break it. And then I thought, wow, what a big responsibility. So we started thinking up ideas, and art seems to work. Of course, because they had this idea about how creativity liberates, and how if you teach art to youngsters, that it opens their minds. It is also a skill they can use. So that's what we've been doing. It's 4 years later. I'm out of UCT, and we have 11 people that work there, and we've placed about 500 kids back into the townships, and some are working, some are doing really great. But also, when I talk about townships, it made me realize the role that we as society have in terms of crime. And it brings me to a question that I have. Who here was born in the 90s? Who here is a parent? Very few parents. Wow. I was hoping I'll be talking more to parents. Who is a brother? Is a brother. Sorry, ladies. Who is a sister? So we all are related. Who is an aunt? You see? Who is an uncle? So many hands, you see? We all have a relation, but who's a community member? Whoa, the hands that are not up, you're not community members? Where do you live? So we all have a role to play. And my passion, since I joined Young in Prison, is this notion of Ubuntu. And those BA students, we love that word. In our essays, we argue and we talk about those things. And for me, my passion is Ubuntu, and making sure that the village raises their children, and the children respects the village. And the only way we can do that is if we as individuals make sure that in that street you live in, you are aware of your neighbor's problem, your children, who's their children, and what their children does. And that was something that I noticed as I have been traveling with YEP, doing community dialogues, is when I grew up, my aunts, and till today, my aunts are my mom's friends, actually. Most of them. I only have one aunt who's a blood relation. Everyone else, they are all my mom's friends. I didn't smoke solely because I had terrible fear that the person who was behind the counter knows my mom, who's going to tell my mom, and my mom is going to beat me. So I didn't do it. Or I knew she had the right to slap me silly, so I didn't try to buy a cigarette, even though I was tempted to try it out. And until today, I've never smoked because of that. And sometimes, to be honest, I still have fear of adults a little bit. So, but also, I didn't kiss boys on the corner because of that. I loved this boy in my street, but I couldn't go out with him because I was just afraid of his mom and the mom. But I'm not, as much as fear was the reason of some of it, I like to think of it as respect, that I respected my adults enough to do it. And I picked on the 90s children because I feel like sometimes the 90s children, I'm an 80s children. When you grow up, you know that theme of when I grew up, in my day it was like this. I've become like that with the 90s children. They make me so upset sometimes. I have a sister in the 90s, so I have the right to say this. The things she gets away with, she tells my mom, no, I never could say that. Even today, I'm married, I have a child, I have a house, but I still cannot say it. If my mom calls me and tells me to do it, I will do it. Because that's the respect. She'll tell her no, and she still lives under her roof, eats her food, and her fees are still paid by her. But she still says no, and guess what? My mom accepts it. But also, the neighbors doesn't say no to someone else's child, because parents have changed also their approach. Who are you to tell my child that? So parents, the way you rear your children, they listen because they will tell the neighbor, who are you to tell me that? So what happens is now in our communities, within the suburbs, in the township, this rule applies because I see children from the burbs also in the prison. And the problem is not because they're little criminals and they were born like that. It's because we are creating criminals. We are allowing someone else to become role models for our children, for our brothers, for our sisters, for our nieces, nephews, whatever you want to say. If you say, I'm not a parent, I'm sure you have a sister, I'm sure you have a brother, you have a niece, you have a nephew. You are going to become a mother. You are going to become a father, whether it's biological or adopted, by default, someone putting it in the will and making sure you inherit a child. But that's relations. But the problem is we are not taking care of each other. And we are losing power to the gangs, to drugs, to crime. And we're filling up our jails, and we're not filling up parliament. And in the future, we'll be ruled by thugs. That's what's going to happen if we do not take care of it today. If you do not decide that someone else's problem is not your problem. If you decide it's their problem, it's their child, it's their sister, that's what's happening. So for instance, I make sure, I have a 2-year-old daughter who's starting sometimes to become a rascal. So we start now. We start today, and she must know that when she meets a guy, a girl, an older person, she must respect them. She knows that. But also, I allow her to participate in the decisions in the home. She must know that too. She must know that if I talk and I share my views, they are listened to. But I must also listen to my mom. I must listen to my dad. And when I go out, I'm a representative of the Ratshidi family. And I make sure that I represent it well. But I'm also a representative of the Plumstead community. I'm also a representative of the Cape Town community, and I'm a representative of South Africa, and I'm a representative of the human race. I'm an African, so I represent all of that. And by doing that, we don't have to do that. Don't think, oh my goodness, Africa is too big, South Africa is too big, Cape Town is too big. But my goodness, in Plumstead, I live in Kumbi Road. That's where it starts. Do I know the people in my street? One thing that I'm doing now in Kumbi Road, 2 months ago when we moved from OBS, I realized they don't greet each other. My goodness, I waved at my neighbor and they just walked. And I thought, no, we don't do that. Because where I come from, I never borrowed salt, and my mom never sent me to borrow salt, but the idea was always there in Kailicha. And you know, I loved OBS, where I lived after university, is that the idea is there too. And that's the idea that should be there. It's not because you're going to borrow salt. It's the idea is there, that when it happens in the time that you're going to need the salt, you are going to be able to find it. You are going to be able to knock on your neighbor's door, and you are going to find it. And that is what I believe that is the solution to our crime problem. It's not because We are going to build these high walls and fences, and we are going to make sure that the police, we invest more in police. We are going to ensure that we invest more in correctional services, which if you read all the annual reports and the financials, you realize more money is being spent on security, mismanaged, all of this. So what do we do about it? What am I going to do to ensure that young people in my Kumbi Road are not going to end up there? I'm not going to be counting how much rents have been spent by the government. I'm going to ensure that I know them. I'm going to ensure that I know their parents, and I'm going to ensure their parents know that if I find their child about to nick something, I'm going to tell them something about it. I'm going to be a sister, a mother, an aunt. I'm going to encourage my husband to be an uncle to young people. And I encourage you, and I think it's about how we can free our own communities and how can we free our own selves. You don't want the fear of walking about and thinking someone's going to rob you and, you know, holding on to your stuff. You don't want that. I think the problem in South Africa is not the crime itself, it's the fact that we are all fearful. You walk around fear. You're just afraid someone's going to take something from you, and then we end up spending so much money on ADT, which, by the way, if you spend money on ADT or any other security company, you know that when the alarm goes off, they first have to call you to find out if there's anything wrong. Then only they'll come. And what if I'm really about to die? So, in order for us not to spend all that money, let's make it a goal that in 10 years' time, we won't be doing that. And the only way we are not going to do that is if we ensure prison is made for psychopaths, that it's not made for drug addicts. Because we're going to clean our own streets. We're going to ensure that gangs are not influencing our children. Because in your street, I don't think we're all living in one street. That means how many streets do we have here that we are going to ensure that? And then, of course, for those that are not here, for the streets that are not accounted for, we are going to spread the message that it starts with your street, one street, one street, one street, one street. And before you know it, it's the whole of South Africa. Before you know it, we are one of the safest countries in the world. Wouldn't that be nice? When you say you're South African, somebody doesn't tell you about how Joburg is one of the most dangerous cities in the world. So we are going to do that. And I encourage you to do that. And I hope that in 10 years' time, there won't be need for young in prison. There'll just be need for us advocating about how maybe social workers should be more in prison to help the psychos. Because there are people who deserve to be in prison, I won't lie to you. But it's not most of them. Because most of them, their problems, especially young people, the problems can easily be solved. And it can be solved by you and I, by us taking more responsibility of our own communities, our own homes, and our own people. I thank you for your attention. Yay!